Hello, Laziali of the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. We're back here talking about Lazio-Empoli. Alistair, I don't know if you like the new jingle, but the first question would be first, thanks for coming back. Was that Santa Claus or Luis Felipe on the slide bringing Christmas gift? Because yesterday I thought his performance was astonishing.
Wow, how many hours is it taking you to craft that introduction? That's has to be one of your best yet. um, yeah, I mean, wow, what a start to 2022. It's I think any hope we had of the winter break changing things and Lazio coming into the new year with new year, new me attitude is, any hopes of that happening were as hopeless as me hoping that you would come into the new year with a new attitude because listen to the last episode without me, and I think within the first minute you managed to insult me twice. So I think I have to accept that 2022 is going to be much like 2021.
I don't remember. I don't remember at all about that. But if you say so, it could be. Um, I mean, Alistair, where do we start? I mean, uh, it reminds me a lot of Zemanlandia. I don't know if you remember Lazio with Zeman. It was crazy. It was crazy. And I have to tell you that in the second half of the match yesterday, I was at the stadium and I was like, what can I say? Because we are attacking, we are playing well. We created a lot of chances. 62% ball possession against Empoli. I think we had 10 shot and 6 on targets. I mean, Lazio attacking was amazing. And we did this with Pedro probably playing the worst match with a Lazio shirt. So, the attack was terrific. 3 goals, a penalty miss, a goal disallowed, other 3 penalties that could be awarded. I mean, the attacking is perfect. We can see Sarri ball. But the problem is the defense. Empoli had 4 shots on targets and 3 goals. I mean, it's nearly 24 hours since Lazio played, and I still didn't understand what happened on the first goal. What what Isai was wanted to do? Did he wanted to pass the ball to Strakosha and made a mistake, or didn't want to allow a corner kick and Strakosha didn't understand it? I mean, I still didn't understand what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I just before we started, I just watched back the highlights again, which I knew immediately was a mistake because I was very quickly kind of shouting and hitting the table in frustration just watching these goals back because I had to pause each one at a certain point and just look at it and think, now, what is going on here? I mean, the Husai one, yeah, it's just individual errors, isn't it? I mean, it felt to me like that cross was a bit high for him, as just above his head. So I mean, it felt like maybe he's just trying to get something on it so it doesn't get in behind him to where the winger's coming in. Um, but it's a dangerous ball. Strakosha makes a terrible decision by charging out. So there's 2 individual errors in that goal. But you can break down each one and just, yes, it's extraordinary, really. The second goal, I paused. I counted 7 Lazio players, not including Strakosha, in the area between the 6-yard box and the penalty spot, and still Zukovsky has about 2 meters of space around him to score. And it's it's honestly just a bit mind blowing that these things can happen. And the third goal, again, I don't know what Patrick's doing. He's trying to get back, and then he just stops, and no, and Lucas is behind him too, and they just leave a player free for a tap in. Let alone Luis Felipe, who you mentioned getting nutmegged and embarrassed on the wing. So it's not like when we were watching the Udinese game and we came in and said Pepe Reina has to go because he's not saving any of the shots that are coming in. This time, I would say, might be even more worrying because the individual errors were everywhere, everywhere. That's the most alarming thing. I don't know. Do you
Alistair,
agree?
the zone doesn't allow you to make the screenshot. On the second goal, they're like as you were mentioning, 7 Lazio defender. And if you see, instead of moving towards the striker, they're all moving backwards. Like, okay, you know when you young and play on the street and say, okay, I'm a goalkeeper now, and move to the goal. It's like all 7 defenders said, yeah, we are goalkeepers now. You don't have to move backwards. You have to go against the player. He had all the time of the world to stop, look at the goal, and score, because everybody was tracking back instead of going against the player. This is simply unacceptable. The third goal, again, how many, Luis Felipe wants 2.5 million euros in salary. I think after tomorrow, it's a miracle if he gets the same amount of money he was getting now. I mean, Luis Felipe has been terrible yesterday. Acerbi probably is the only defender that saves himself, because he was subbed after a couple of minutes. But
Yeah, but Lazio had already conceded 2 goals by the time
Yeah.
Acerbi went off.
Yeah, and there are rumors about Lazzari leaving, but after the performance of Marusic and Isai, are we really thinking that Lazzari is worse than this Isai? I don't think so. Honestly, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, God, I mean, for me, the key problem is still the centre backs for me. I mean, I know that a lot of the kind of mercato rumors and speculation so far has been based around a left back and Vice Immobile, which has been obviously a long running thing. But I don't understand how you can come to any other conclusion other than that we need more centre backs, because it's not even just the fact that once you get past Acerbi and Felipe, you've got Patrick. It's actually the fact that our 2 first choice centre backs both have their own issues going on, which is, in Felipe's case, which you alluded to, an expiring contract in the next few months. And no matter who you are, of course, that's going to play some sort of impact on your mental state if you don't know whether you're in or out at the end of the season. And then Acerbi's case, obviously, a section of the fan base has fallen out with him in the last month or so, which I want to ask you about, actually, as to what happened yesterday. But then on top of that, injury problems starting to flag up. He won't be available against Inter, and it's not been his best season anyway, and started to show his age a little bit. So it's not like Felipe and Acerbi, when they're fully fit, is a bulletproof partnership anyway. The problem is, if you look at Lazio's history of signing centre backs, it's not great, is it? I mean, Acerbi is by far the most successful one, but you go beyond that,
Definitely.
and the money they spent in Vavro, obviously. But, and then we've got Mauricio, Wallace, Bastos was top player, probably not a centre back, as you know. But, the history of Iglitari signing centre backs is pretty dodgy. Even last year, Musacchio coming in January.
Hurt.
Wesley Hurts, yeah. Milan Biševac, Gentiletti. They can go way back. There's tons of them. And basically none of them have made an impact. So you wonder, do they need like a centre-back consultant to come in and help them decide? But that's not going to happen, because as we heard from Peruzzi recently, they wouldn't even ask Peruzzi about goalkeepers. So they're not going to ask anyone about centre-backs.
Why would you ask one of the best goalkeeper in the world if he can give some advice about goalkeeping? I really don't get it, Alistair. What are you talking about? The biggest take about this match, Alistair, is at least this winter, Iglitare cannot say, hey, the team is so good, it's very complicated to improve it, right? Because usually at the end of the January, he says, well, this team is so good that it's very difficult to improve it. No, this year you don't have this excuse. If you say something like that, then you're blind or you're watching other teams.
The famous Ferrari quote.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
I think 2 central defenders would be the dream. Probably another left back or right back, depending on the future of Lazzari. And, we talk about the Vice Immobile for ages, but at this point, I think it's not a priority. You need to get a central defender, a left back, maybe another central defender, and then the Vice Immobile.
Yeah, and we know we're not, PSG, and you touched on as well in the last podcast the liquidity index and the problems that's causing, and the fact that
Yeah,
Lazio are going to have to sell before they can even think about buying. So obviously, it's this is very wishful thinking to come up with, the idea of signing two first choice centre backs seems very, very unlikely for financial reasons as much as anything else. But I think we have to agree. I mean, it's the only way that the team's going to improve. If you look at the numbers and the performances this season, all these frantic performances, there's no way around it. There's absolutely no way around it. It's if you've got the third best attack in the league, which we do currently with 42 goals, but the fifth worst defense in the league, well, that's where you need to be investing. That's where you need to be improving because, like you said, Lazio, in an attacking sense, dominated the game yesterday. But if
yeah.
you're going to concede basically almost every time the opposition launches an attack, you're always going to find it difficult. It was the same with the Udinese game, obviously. There were lots of parallels where they scored 4 goals with 5 shots, I think it was. And yesterday, like you said, 3 goals with 4 shots. So there's not much more to really say about it. It's the big gaping hole in the team, but the track record of Lazio being good in the market in January, being good at signing centre backs, and being willing to actually spend proper money, or able to in this case, doesn't fill me with hope that that's really going to happen.
I think there are more chances that I make a compliment to you than Lazio do a good winter transfer market.
Yeah, well, yeah, probably,
I
but
fear
maybe even
so.
less.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but
But can I just ask though, but before we move on the Acerbi thing, because we spoke about this before, and I think we were in agreement that it was an overreaction to when he cupped his ear to the Curva after scoring a goal against Genoa just before Christmas, and then yesterday was the first home game since then. When he came off injured, you could hear the boos off the TV pretty clearly. But then there are, lots of accounts from inside the stadium that the rest of the stadium was booing the Curva's boos. So could you tell us a bit about what it was like inside the stadium?
yeah, exactly. When the team was announced, Acerbi was booed by the Curva as well as the usual one we already know. And then when the match started, every time Acerbi was taking the ball, the Curva was booing. When he was subbed, he was booed. And when the rest of even the Distinti Nord where I was, we start booing the Curva Nord because at a certain point when Acerbi was subbed, he was on the bench and he stand up, and the Curva Nord was shouting to Acerbi, go away, etc. And the rest of the stadium booed the Curva Nord. We talked already. I think this is awful. It's a Lazio player. If until he's a Lazio player, you have to support the players, and the Curva Nord simply is not doing it. We already talked about everything about this thing. So yeah, I didn't like it, and obviously I booed the Curva Nord. And can I say something? The celebration of Simone Inzaghi coming back, this thing of Acerbi, the banner on his eye, the Curva Nord is doing a lot of things wrong this season. A lot of things wrong.
And also seems to be getting a bigger counter reaction than probably ever before, I would suggest. I mean,
Yeah.
it does seem like there has got to a point now where people are really getting sick of it and speaking out about it more than before. Don't know, perhaps just getting that impression this season, but yeah, interesting.
We have a question from an Inter fan about Luis Felipe Alessandro. I think we talked about this already, right? About Luis Felipe moving to Inter. Have you changed your mind? Do you think he's a player that can play for Inter?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think when we spoke about this before, we were kind of in agreement that he doesn't necessarily have an obvious position in the back three, and so that was kind of his problem with Inzaghi. He's settled on him playing on the right of the back three. I always thought his best role was actually in the middle, but he struggled firstly with De Vrij and then with Acerbi to actually be in that position. The problem is, and we've seen this probably more this season than in previous ones. In previous seasons, the inconsistency with Felipe has been down to the fact that his seasons have been mostly broken up with injury problems. So he was always kind of given a little bit the benefit of the doubt with performances, whether he was returning from injury or whatever. Whereas this season he has played a lot more regularly, and we've seen these kind of ups and downs. He's maybe not quite as extreme an example as Felipe Anderson, but not far off in terms of having very, very good days followed by pretty bad days, and sometimes quite hot-headed. He got booked yesterday, I think it was, Felipe, for a pretty stupid challenge, and you do see him kind of. He does like the hero tackle, the big sweeping slide tackles and stuff, which I do enjoy, but sometimes, there's a time and a place. I think he's a very good player, but we haven't seen him kind of consistently play at his best level, let's say.
I have to agree with you, which hurts me a lot, but it reminds me a little bit of Mauricio, with the only difference that probably when he's Mauricio, when he was sliding, he will always miss the ball and give a penalty to the other team. Luis Felipe, at least not all the time, but very often gets the ball and not the player. But I think a top level defender is the one that doesn't make so many mistakes. This season, if I'm not wrong, it's at least the second time Luis Felipe makes a mistake. Even against Milan, he got it wrong this year, even last year, I think. So the biggest difference is, for example, talking about Inter, I don't remember Skriniar or De Vrij making 2-3 mistakes a season. I do remember Luis Felipe making 3, 4, 5 mistakes a season. The booking of yesterday is simply nuts. You can push the attacker, the Empoli attacker, wide instead of doing that stupid tackle. You were very close to the box. That could have been a very easy penalty. It's a very dangerous free kick you allowed. Empoli created a huge chance from that free kick, and simply you didn't need to do it. It wasn't a desperate challenge as he made it. So I think that sometimes he loses control. On the other side, we have to say that his relationship with Simone Inzaghi is very strong. Simone Inzaghi created Luis Felipe. Let's not forget he was coming from Salernitana, where he hardly played. So there's a big relationship there. With De Vrij leaving, Luis Felipe could come there and help Inter. But again, as I mentioned before, he doesn't deserve 2.5 million euros of salary. He's proving that he's not worthy.
What's the chances Inzaghi ends up with Strakosha and Luis Felipe on free transfers, and he's just kind of recreating an old Lazio 2017 defense? De Vrij and Felipe and Strakosha. He's tried to sign Radu in the summer, bring him in.
Strakosha 0%, I would say. Strakosha would rather retire than go and play with Inzaghi, right?
I find it quite funny, the Inter idea in a sense, just because it was like, I imagine that's probably one of the things Inzaghi was most relieved to leave behind, was the Lazio defensive issues and the kind of, but not just that, these kind of like, the blackouts that obviously plagued his time there. And Felipe is as guilty of those as anyone in the team, really. So I think on a free transfer, he would be incredible business, really. But yeah, it's at that tricky position, like you say, where they're trying to work out his value and what he deserves to be earning.
What's your take on Strakosha? Because you mentioned Lazio Udinese, where we said, okay, it's time to bench Reina. A lot of fans are not happy about the performance of Strakosha yesterday. Do you think it's time to bench him?
No.
Okay.
For who? For Reina.
Reina.
We're back to square one. God, people have short memories if that's what people are campaigning for now. No, I mean, he made a bad mistake to concede the penalty. An error of judgment where he really, took too long to get out to that position he should have never been really charging out to anyway. But, let's not forget the errors that Reina has made as well. And the fundamental logic that we had of preferring Strakosha to Reina was he will make you saves that make a difference in a match from time to time, whereas Reina hasn't done that.
No.
That logic still stands. neither of them are perfect. We know that. I think saying you prefer Strakosha to Reina isn't saying you think Strakosha is the best goalkeeper in Serie A. It just means you think he's the better option of two pretty average options. But another player whose contract's running out. And
Do you think?
now, as things stand with Cataldi in the same situation, three of your starting 11, you don't know if they're going to be there at the end of the year. It's not ideal, really.
Would you try to resign them? Strakosha, Cataldi, Luis Felipe?
Yeah, I think so. I guess it depends on the terms, doesn't it? I can't see Cataldi asking for a crazy amount of money. I'd keep Cataldi. I think he's worth having around. Felipe, I would definitely keep on the right terms again. Yeah, I mean,
what's the right term for Luis Felipe? But because he's asking 2.5.
Well, what's he on at the moment? He's still on less than $1 million, isn't he?
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Did it go up?
No, it's still below your salary. Yeah.
Yeah, 2.5 is a lot considering
how many mistakes he makes. Yeah.
Around 2, I think, is reasonable.
Okay.
You disagree?
Yeah. I mean, you know what's the problem is I sometimes think that we underestimate our players, and then when they play a couple of matches, we overestimate. I think Luis Felipe is proving to be a good defender, but if you're pointing to the Champions League, consistently reaching the Champions League, maybe he's not the solution for you. So maybe 1.5 could be the right solution. And then it depends, obviously. Roma pays subs higher than Ciro Immobile. So, it depends where you are.
Yeah. And I think as well with the salary stuff, the thing is Lazio have done really well to keep key players in the squad over the last few seasons. And while Inzaghi was building that team, they put a lot of money into making sure that the star players stayed where they are. But obviously that has meant that the salary requirements have gone up and up. And that means that the players further down the squad are going to ask for more and more money to be comparable with the players above them. So that in itself is a bit of a tricky situation. But this is the eternal problem with Lazio. They're going to have to basically find gems on the market to remain competitive at low prices. And Tari has got worse and worse at doing that, it would seem. That we've had a real hidden gem. I mean, Basic looks like he could be, even though I don't think he quite falls into that category because he has come from a top 5 league and he is, he did come for proper money. It's not like he came for absolutely nothing.
8 million euros, not that much. Come on.
Yeah, but it's not the same thing as Alberto for 4 million or Luis Felipe from some Brazilian club for 300,000 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
He's had better days.
Yep, definitely. Thanks to our Indonesian fan, Lazio fan, supporting us. Thanks, it's a pleasure. Alistair, we talked a lot about our defense, but I think we have to talk even about our midfield, because how often did we see Empoli attacking with 1-2 players more than Lazio defense? You mentioned Cataldi. Is it time to go back to Leiva? Because the last performance of Danilo Cataldi weren't so encouraging like the first one. I thought he lose something. And we always said it, right? Leiva is better when we need to defend. If we are playing with Luis Alberto and Milinkovic-Savic together as we did yesterday because Basic wasn't 100% fit, maybe we should go back to Leiva and use his experience to cover better our defense that is already struggling on their own. But without midfield helping, it gets even worse.
Yeah, well, this is a thing. I mean, the midfield is so top heavy. And you notice that in games like this more than ever, because Lazio looks so in control and so dangerous while they're attacking. And then defensively, I mean, the second goal being a good example where all those bodies are piled up in the box and Zukovsky just peels off. Yep. That's all he does. Very obvious thing to do. and Milinkovic-Savic at the beginning is standing right beside him. But he gets drawn, like you said, into that situation where it almost looks like one of those indirect free kicks people get in the box where all the players are lined up on the goal line with the goalkeeper. And so, yeah, I think that was just an example of the fact that his defensive intuition perhaps isn't quite there. And it's moments like that I wouldn't individually blame him for that goal necessarily, but just, lapses of defensive duties are more likely to happen. With the Cataldi Lucas thing, I think it's actually quite similar to the Strakosha Reina one, where basically I don't feel like either option is really going to give us exactly what we're looking for, which is essentially Jorginho. And they're very different players. They interpret the role very differently, but neither is quite given us a real consistency of performance in there.
Alistair, you mentioned about the signing players, etc. One thing we have to say that should be different this season is, we have the index liquidity issue, but the funny thing is Lazio has money. We have the 10 million euros of Binance. We have the 25 million euros of Correa that Lazio should receive in January. So it's strange because Lazio has to sell before signing players because of the index liquidity that is the picture of the 30th of September. But this is probably the first winter where Lazio has real money to spend. So if we sell players, which is a big if, then Lazio has money to go and sign players. So even to reply to Alex Di Bacco, who's asking us thoughts on selling Luis Alberto to bring a proper defender. Well, maybe we don't need to sell Luis Alberto to do it. Said this, does Luis Alberto fit in Sarri's system for you, Alistair?
I still think if we're going to use Alberto, he's almost better. I don't know. He doesn't quite fit in the sense of offering the kind of box to box energy that you need, covering both phases of the game, and we know that. And it's the same with both of them, Milinkovic-Savic and Alberto. And this has been a consistent theme throughout Sarri's time at the club. How do you get that balance? How do we get the support? The defense clearly isn't anywhere near strong enough to survive on its own. It needs help from the midfield to stop conceding goals, and it's not getting the support it needs. Alberto's a strange one. What would you say Alberto would get in the market? That's the thing that stops me from saying yes. I mean, if you say he's going to get, I don't know, 35, 40 million euros or something, then that's something Lazio would probably accept at this point, because in Basic, you've got someone who has stepped into that role and performed well. So it's not like you're kind of completely throwing the team under a bus, although obviously it's a big drop off in quality. But if you're talking about selling him for, I don't know, 15, 20 million, then probably not.
Yeah.
And it's quite hard to tell, because how many clubs are out there this winter with all the problems everyone's been facing over the last couple of years with huge amounts of money to spend, and spend immediately as well, as the other thing. Lazio probably aren't going to benefit hugely from being told, okay, we'll give you this big fee, but it's going to be paid over the next 5 years. And yeah.
That's the question. I mean, English club have the money to afford Luis Alberto. I don't think Lazio will sell him for less than 25 million euros. It wouldn't make sense. So I think it's hard to sell Luis Alberto and Milinkovic-Savic now. The biggest question mark is what's going to happen this summer. We know Lazio will probably have to sell some players and buy players that are more suited to the Sarri ball. So maybe there's going to be where Luis Alberto could leave the club. Let's finish on a high note, Alistair. Milinkovic-Savic's performance yesterday. I thought we saw, especially in the second half, a great Milinkovic-Savic.
Yeah, and he showed just what kind of difference he can make. I mean, at times he just looks like he's playing another game from everyone else. And actually, when he scores those goals, he makes it look so easy that you wonder, why aren't you doing that all the time?
Yeah.
The volley was just makes that look so easy, but coming at that height across his body at that speed, I mean, that was not an easy finish. And then obviously he becomes a kind of auxiliary striker when he's pushed up to get those headers as well. Uh, I mean, Lazio should have won this game. Let's put no doubt into that. Henderson hit the crossbar. We haven't even talked about Immobile missing his penalty and, well, having it saved, I should say. And the chances were there for Lazio to win this game, even though they conceded 3 goals. But Milinkovic-Savic, you need him in moments like that. It was good to see him step up in moments like that, and he got the assist as well, didn't he, for the Chiro header, which was another great goal.
Yeah.
It is nice that we don't have to worry about the attacking side of this team because they're brilliant. They're brilliant going forward, but it's such an imbalance.
You mentioned even Felipe Anderson. I thought he played well yesterday. When Zaccagni came in, he's really growing in that position. I thought Pedro was a little bit too nervous, and when Zaccagni came in, Lazio really stepped up. So you can see that we are getting better when we're attacking compared to the beginning of the season. And we have more options now, because before we relied pretty much only on those 3, Pedro, Felipe Anderson, and Immobile. Now we have Zaccagni coming in, who looks really promising. Basic, we mentioned him a lot of times in this podcast, is another good option. We are lacking a number 9, a Vice Immobile. That's the only concern we have. But I mean, we were able to win already without Ciro Immobile twice. So I think we can handle Ciro Immobile absence. I think we need even to talk about who's going to be the next one taking penalties, because we love Ciro, but he's making some this year. Well, last year he missed too many penalties, and this year didn't start on the right foot.
Yeah, I did read about this. He's now missed in Serie A over the last 2 years. He's taken 11 penalties. Do you want to guess how many he's missed?
5.
6. He's missed 6 of 11 penalties in the last 2 years. That's astonishing, really, if you consider how prolific he was the year before that, when I think he scored something like 13 penalties. The year he equaled the goal record in Serie A. I think he scored 13 penalties. And we were saying at the time, remember, consistently, when everyone was calling him a penalty merchant and stat padding, all this kind of stuff, saying it's not, penalties don't score themselves. You need to be a good player to be that consistent from the penalty spot. And now we're seeing that because we've obviously missed out on quite a few goals. So what, do you think he should be replaced at this point and give it to someone else?
We have plenty of options. I think Luis Alberto, Milinkovic-Savic are good options. I think Felipe Anderson takes the penalty, but I'm not secure with Felipe Anderson state of mind taking a penalty. So I would avoid Felipe Anderson, but I think we have plenty of options there. So, yeah, I would think about it, honestly.
The thing is, Chiro's, he always does one of 2 things. He hits it hard and low left or hard and low right, and he barely ever does, like a dink down the middle or smash it into the roof of the net. As far as I can remember, anyway, it seems like he's very, very good at that penalty, but it is kind of giving the keeper a 50-50 every time if he's never going to mix it up and go for the top corner or go for the down the middle or the cheeky dink or whatever.
Yeah, can I say something? From the stadium, I thought it was a good penalty. After reviewing it, the highlights, it wasn't very hard for the keeper to save it. It wasn't very... It was hard, strong, but it wasn't very difficult for the goalkeeper. I think he saved it with the chest, not even with the hands. So this tells you that I don't know. Maybe he felt. Maybe he slid a little bit. The pitch wasn't great yesterday, honestly. You've been missing Rome for a while. Heavy rains in the last couple of weeks, and you can see that the Olimpico wasn't in great shape. I think Ciro Immobile slid 3 times in the first half, so maybe that influenced his penalty.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I think that's it, probably. I can't think of anything more to say. A
Well,
big game coming up, another Inzaghi reunion this weekend.
yeah, yeah. Well, the only thing we should say, Alistair, is transfer window started. Escalante is gone, loan.
Yeah.
Alessandro Rossi, that probably a lot of people forgot about him, went on loan to Monopoly, 6 months. I don't know why.
Is it that not the same with all the players who are leaving? It's like Jordan Lukaku and Escalante are going. It's like, what? They still play for Lazio?
The funny thing of Alessandro Rossi is that Lazio has a recompra. So Monopoly can sign the player, but Lazio has the rights to buy it back.
The buyback, yeah.
Which I don't understand because he's not in the list. You didn't give him a chance in the last 5 years. He's 25, turning 26. It's not that it's a youngster that still can improve. Why do you have a buyback option? I really don't get it. The other thing, Alistair, is the Lukaku you mentioned. Yesterday, the sport director of Vicenza said, well, we still didn't finalize the contract because it looks like Lukaku had a change of heart. So maybe he's staying.
Maybe he's hoping that move to Newcastle will finally come through.
Who knows? Maybe.
I mean, these guys, I mean, you touched on it with Karsten a bit in the last one, but some of these guys, you just wonder, surely you should be forcing these moves to try and get your career going again, because you know, players like Dormizi and Lukaku, they're not terrible footballers. They deserve to have proper careers, but obviously it's not happening with Lazio. This always happens with Lazio. Always happens.
And the problem, Alistair, is that you have to sell one, not send them on loan. Otherwise, you won't be able to sign players. So this is the thing Lazio have to try to do.
Yeah, exactly. But it seems like loans are what's going to happen, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's the only way you can convince people.
There's not a lot of money around, so this is going to be very complicated. But maybe you can talk about this another time, Alistair. Thanks again for joining me. Is good, I would say. Well, I cannot say bad to have you back in Rome. And
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Inter Lazio is coming shortly, so we're going to be back after the second Inzaghi reunion. Goodbye, everybody.